All right, welcome back to On Texas Football, special live edition of On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe. He's CJ Vogel. We are live on the 40 acres, breaking down the Steve Sarkisian press conference coming off of a 45-38 overtime win over Mississippi State. The CJ, I still have no idea how that team pulled it off, but Texas is ranked, coming back home at 6-2, everything in front of them, getting ready to play number 9 Vanderbilt on Saturday. Texas back at DKR. It'll be 42 days between home games when Texas gets on the field on Saturday against Vanderbilt. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by our friends at Duck Camp. We will talk about Duck Camp and the Arch Manning situation here in a little bit. But CJ, your initial thoughts on what we heard from Sark just now covered a lot of ground between coming off the win over Mississippi State and then looking ahead to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he sure did. I think the one thing about is, championship teams supposed to win, and you could argue this probably shouldn't have won, and yet championship team, but they've put themselves in the thing that they've wanted to achieve moving forward, and of course, this upcoming weekend is going to be quite the test.
Yeah, we're going to see if we can get CJ reconnected here in a minute. Apologize for the technical difficulties. But yeah, so what CJ was saying is basically what Sark said, it not just in his opening statement, but really throughout the press conference today, that championship caliber teams is what they do. Even in games where they probably shouldn't win, they find a way to win. And I thought it was interesting to hear from Sark today talk about what he likes about this team is that, it's a team that's connected. The staff likes each other. The players like being around each other. And that's probably playing a big role in why Texas has been able to overcome these last two issues they've had with road games. Obviously, the offense wasn't picking up its end of the deal against Kentucky, against Mississippi State. It was the defense, and the good news, the saving grace, has been the special teams 2 weeks in a row. Sark was asked, about kicking away from Ryan Niblett, and then you get into the issue with, are you losing field position and directional punting? But at some point, I feel like opponents are going to stop kicking to Ryan Niblett on punts. But CJ's back with us. CJ, you want to just finish up your initial thoughts there?
Yeah, sorry about that. I have no idea what's going on this past week with StreamYard and myself. I thought it was just Starkville's Wi-Fi, but no, it's lingered down here to Austin. But no, the one line that I really kind of listened in on for Sark is championship teams win games they probably weren't supposed to, and this would be 2 weeks in a row, Jeff, in which Texas has won a game they probably weren't supposed to win, and this one even more so unlikely than the one in Lexington where you only score 13 points in regulation and end up squeaking out another victory. But they have everything that they've wanted to achieve coming into the season ahead of them. It starts with a top 10 team this weekend in Vanderbilt, who's playing great football. And it's going to be, an even tougher hill to climb than normal, considering the status of Arch Manning currently.
Yeah, we'll get to Arch in a second. Somebody posted it over on TexasFootball.com. It's the lowest win probabilities Texas has had, I think, in games in the last 10 years. And the Mississippi State game was up there with, in terms of lowest in-game win probabilities Texas has had. It's right up there with that 2020 comeback in Lubbock against Texas Tech. Texas had another one of those in 2020 against Oklahoma State. There was the 2015 just weird game, Art Braw's last game in Waco against Baylor, where you needed Poona Ford to stretch a hand out to knock a ball loose on Baylor's last drive to secure that win. And, CJ, I've been trying to find comps to this team because teams like this can be frustrating to watch in terms of, do they play up and down to their competition? And kind of the two that I've settled on, one would be the 2007 team, which, a lot like this team, insanely talented, but just is equally sloppy and undisciplined at times. And the 2020 team under Tom Herman, and that team, 2020 was a weird season anyway. They won a few that they probably shouldn't have, and they lost a few that they probably should have won. And CJ, I think where I'm getting with this team is kind of what I said about some of those Tom Herman teams and even some of those Mac Brown teams. The great thing about this team is they can keep themselves in every game.
Yeah.
The bad thing about this team is that they have to keep themselves in every game because they dig themselves a deficit at some point or just have these lulls that get them in a hole. You'd like to think that evens out at some point, but CJ, we're 8 games into this. We've talked about just buckling up and riding the roller coaster. It's probably what this team is going to be the rest of the way.
Yeah, definitely. And we've heard it from the post game in Lexington to the Monday press conference, post game in Starkville to the Monday press conference. And, every time that this staff or team has had the opportunity to talk about what's kind of conveyed this season so far, it's been about, hey, just find a way. It doesn't matter if it's the offense rolling or the defense rolling or the special teams really masking every issue. It's just, hey, we've got guys on this team that believe they're talented and they want to win, so they find a way to do exactly that. And that's really been exactly what has carried Texas over the last 3 weeks. Since that Florida loss, they don't have any margin for error, but it doesn't matter because somehow, some way, they found a way each and every week, Jeff.
No doubt. All right, CJ, let's get to it. Let's talk about the Arch Manning situation. Sark was asked about Arch today. I'll just let the head coach speak for himself. Matthew's got this cut, but there was Sark today when he was asked about Arch's availability.
He's in protocol right now. We'll have more information as the week goes.
That's pretty much it. There's no need. I mean, and CJ, he did not practice today, obviously being in concussion protocol. And Sark got a follow up and expressed some frustration. And I think that CJ is from the standpoint of, hey, when a guy goes into concussion protocol, assuming everything is above board and being handled the right way, it is completely out of the coach's hands, which means if Arch is going to play against Vanderbilt, his availability is completely out of Sark's hands at this point.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to leave it up to the doctors, and that's going to be that. He didn't practice today. Concussion protocol is exactly what it is, right? There are hoops and hurdles that Arch now has to clear to get cleared for the game on Saturday. And, given kind of the history of folks that go into protocol, it takes quite a while. A week may not be enough time to get Manning back on the field for Saturday.
Yeah, we got one super chat here. CJ James Williams says, still bad. CJ, look, you guys can fire off emails to CDC to let them know how bad the Wi-Fi is around campus. We're doing the best with what we've got, so we apologize for that, but we're going to power through it. James also asked, did they ever have this type of a comeback in the Big 12? This was the biggest comeback Texas has had since that 2007 season. And CJ, I remember the game was against Oklahoma State in Stillwater, and Texas was down 17 going into the fourth quarter. Mac Brown looked like he was going to have a stroke on the sideline. Like it was about as bad as it could be. But between Colt McCoy and Jamal Charles and Ryan Bailey at the end, Texas was able to pull it out. Again, they've had two of these games, and CJ, like I said, at some point you think this team is maybe going to even out. We're going to have to ride the roller coaster. But the good news is, and we saw this again against Mississippi State, for those stretches when this team does put it together, which there are stretches in games where they do put it together and play complementary football, they look like the team we thought they were going to be. It's just those stretches, they're few and far between at this point.
Yeah, look, the first three possessions of the game, 3 and out, touchdown, 3 and out. You're sitting there saying this team looks good. You finish the game, the last 4 possessions, Texas goes 24 points and not a single first down, or only 1 first down, according to Sark. That's what you thought this team could be. Now it's, to your point, it's everything in between. It's the ugliness, it's the inconsistencies, it's the ups and the downs. If they can just find a way to play that long-term complementary football, Jeff, they're a good team.
No doubt. Let's get back to the Arch Manning situation, CJ, real quick, because Matthew Caldwell, he was available after the game on Saturday. I know you got a chance to hear what he had to say. And, Sark was asked about Caldwell today. I mean, look, with Arch out, Caldwell ran with the number 1 offense today. KJ Lacey, if the game was played today, would be the backup quarterback. CJ, the good news is, going back to it, and we can go back to this, and we'll do this plenty on the channel this week. But, man, that portal pickup, that late portal pickup of Matthew Caldwell is so huge for this team right now. It's one of the reasons why you're still alive with everything in front of you. But I do like Sark talking about that when they brought him in on the recruiting visit, he just liked his demeanor. Like all he wanted was just an opportunity. Texas has given him that opportunity. And CJ, Sark talked about Matthew Caldwell today as a guy that, and I love this, has earned the respect of his teammates even before he got on the field. And you earn respect of your teammates too when you produce. And he's been called on twice in conference play to come in and produce, and he's delivered both times.
Yeah, he has. And again, that goes into the character that Sark and his staff fell in love with whenever he took his visit. And Sark mentioned, Jeff, they had looked at a number of different portal quarterbacks to come in and be kind of this safe haven for Arch if he were to go down. They settled on Caldwell, and I think you ask Sarkeesian, you ask anybody in this offensive room right now, they're pretty pleased with the result. Of course, the one play in overtime that kind of sealed the deal for Texas, very impressive to check into or tag that audible route into a fade, make the throw. Obviously, the catch by Mosley is tremendous. But you talk about earning the respect and earning really that ability for
the guys in that offensive room to believe in him, that's there right now, and that's what you need going against the top 10 team, regardless of who you're playing.
No doubt. Actually, we got a super chat. Super chats do jump to the front of the line. Thank you. Chat is lively already. Obviously, coming off of a big comeback win and looking ahead to a ranked matchup at home. Bradford, thank you for the super chat. Should Texas use spread with bunch/empty, hit quick passes to set up the run, then mix quarterback runs, forces defense to spy/contain, creating big play opportunities? Bradford, thank you for the super chat. CJ, we talked about it, and it's interesting that we're having this conversation now because when we talked about the offense on Saturday after the game, when you and Coach Shipley and I did our grade show, this offense seems to be at its best when it's kind of in panic mode and it has to go fast, and really nobody has time to think and you're playing off instincts. It's tough to bottle that, CJ, but what do you think? And look, Sark's definitely not going to give us anything to do. He doesn't on a normal week, and this is far from a normal week, so he's not going to give us anything in terms of game plan. But, CJ, if Matthew Caldwell is the starting quarterback for Texas on Saturday, what are you thinking this offense looks like?
I don't think it'll change too much. And, it's interesting because, to your point, Texas looks great when they go hurry up, right? Maybe throw in a couple of runs, but air it out down the field. Don't allow those defenses to get 7 and 8 guys into a box, because that's exactly what Mississippi State did in the second and third quarters, and Texas had no answer, right? So you got to spread it out. I think you ditch 12 personnel, but with a backup quarterback, how viable is that, right? Can you really rely on, 40, 50 throws? And you're going to have limited opportunities this weekend, and that goes back to playing the complementary football, because when Vanderbilt gets into their huddle and they have 7-minute drives, 8-minute drives, and they're really wearing on your defense, you can't come out and and go 3 and out with 3 passes that don't take any time off the clock. So it's a tough situation, but I do know the best football Arch Manning's played so far this year, Jeff, is when he can go quick and he can huck it around the field and use his legs to create plays afterward. I hope that's what Texas leans on when he returns to the lineup, but right now I don't know if you can necessarily lean on that and rely on it this weekend with Matthew Caldwell.
Knowing it's a low possession game, CJ, I'm thinking this may be a game where if you're Sark, you may want to take the ball first just to try to establish something. Obviously, your script has to be better than it's been all year, because you don't want to go 3 and out on that first drive and give it right back to Vanderbilt. But this may be where you try to take the ball and get a lead right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's exactly what Texas did with Malik Murphy against Kansas State in 2023. Texas ended up scoring on that drive, and I remember folks at the time was sitting there saying, wait, Malik looked pretty darn good. Where's this been? Now, to your point, Jeff, that script has to carry over into the full 4 quarters.
James Williams with another super chat. Thank you, James, for your second super chat here of the live. Said, what happened to Owens? What happened to Trey Owens? CJ, I think if you haven't read the writing on the wall in regards to Trey Owens' future at Texas, you probably need to check it out. And Sark even alluded to it today. In the age of the portal and NIL, it's really hard to keep really talented quarterbacks on your roster in abundance. KJ Lacey passed Trey Owens, and I think we kind of can all sense where this is headed.
Yeah, I think so as well. And look, the one thing that Sark mentioned that KJ that again kind of caught my attention was when he's on the field, the ball goes forward, and that's with his arms, that's with his legs, somehow, some way. Defenses have troubles defending KJ Lacey, and that's why you've seen him jump into QB2, and that's where he will be this weekend should Arch not be available.
We've got a Jerry's Jack Links. We'll get to your question here in just a second, because he said he had a super chat that was missed at the end of Coffee and Football this morning. I do apologize for that. We'll get to that here in a second. But right now, I want to take the opportunity to thank our sponsor for this live edition of On Texas Football, and that's our friends over at Duck Camp. And Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From those sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop duckcamp.com today. And when you do, On Texas Football listeners, use the promo code ONTexas25, and that'll give you 25% off of your purchase at duckcamp.com today. And thank you, Duck Camp, for sponsoring this edition. Jerry's Jack Links, let's go ahead and get to your question. Again, sorry we missed the super chat at the end of Coffee and Football this morning. CJ, this is interesting. Do y'all think this is the deepest the SEC has ever been? I was trying to think about it this weekend. I think when you look at the hierarchy of the conference, I think right now you can say there are definitely 2, maybe 3 would you say probably are elite teams right now with Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia. And then it seems like there's some really good teams that have their flaws but have potential. I think Texas is in that mix. Tennessee, I'd put Ole Miss in that group. And CJ, it seems like the bottom of the conference, like if you put Mississippi State in another league, they may be a 5 or 6 win team right now. But so I don't know if it's the deepest it's ever been, but I think that's kind of the nature of the beast when you go to 16 teams.
I think it's the highest floor the conference has ever been. You don't have a Vanderbilt that's barely battling out for 1-11. The worst teams that are in the conference right now have played some pretty tough games. Right, Mississippi State right now, their record isn't pretty, but they've gone to the wire against Tennessee and Texas, and they've beaten Arizona State, who went to the playoff a year ago. Kentucky's the worst team, and I know they got 50 bombed by Tennessee this past weekend, but look, it's a tough team, Jeff.
Yeah, Trey Lowe has a good question, CJ, and you have more of a pulse on recruiting than I do. It says, how have Texas played recently had any impact on the recruits? Look, I mean, Texas is in some national recruitments. You've got guys that are going to visit other schools regardless. It's just the nature of the beast. But CJ, recruits. It's worth mentioning again. Recruits don't look at things in a vacuum like fans do. They tend to look more at the big picture, playing the long game. Let's face it, NIL does have a factor in this, but I don't think it's the recruits right now are going to be down on Texas just because Texas had a couple of close overtime games in conference play.
No, I don't think it'll have much impact at all. And again, Texas continues to win. They've been away from home. Texas can also pitch. Hey, we've got a lot of talent. Look at it across our lineup, but we need you to come in and be that piece that makes this a overtime win on the road to a 20-point win on the road. So I don't think it'll have much negative impact the way that Texas has been playing now. These next 4 games, I think, will be very important as to how Texas finishes the season. But all in all, Texas is in good spots with just about everybody in their class at the moment.
CJ, I want to get to one question, and then there's a couple things I want to touch on with you to wrap this up. Dean has a question for you, CJ. It says, CJ, what did you think of Sark's presser? He seemed a little off, his confidence and his attitude. Look, it was given that news that broke, that report that broke Saturday morning and his response after the game, and then the nature of the game, and then you've got to come back where your starting quarterback is in concussion protocol and you're playing a top 10 opponent. I don't fault Sark for maybe being a little on edge today, CJ.
Yeah, I think there's a little on edge, a little stress. I mean, to your point, Jeff, that's not easy when Arch Manning, your starting quarterback, is in protocol and he can't be your starting quarterback in a top 10 matchup. So there's probably some uneasiness, but hey, I'm sure that'll dwindle a little bit depending on how practice goes moving on this week.
All right, CJ, the couple things I wanted to get to you with. Let's start on it's two things on offense. That's actually one thing you asked Sark about, but I want to get to the left guard situation. Texas now basically, Sark said it today, has basically a 3-guard rotation with DJ Campbell, Connor Stroh, and Nick Brooks. He said they went with Connor Stroh basically because they felt like he was playing a little bit better than Nick Brooks on Saturday. And CJ, you even mentioned this in our grade show, when it went to a strictly passing game and you didn't have the luxury of running the football anymore, probably lent itself more to Connor Stroh playing than Nick Brooks anyway. But what do you make of this guard rotation? No update on DJ Campbell today, but he was asked point blank about Neto Mazzullo and Nate Kibble. And Sark said, look, we've got 3 guards right now that are going to play, and the other guys are working hard. So what do you make of this guard situation right now?
Yeah, you've got to go with the hot hand. You don't have time to do the whole, testing of who is going to be a viable option right now. You really don't have many viable options if you're Steve Sarkisian. You got to go with Connor Stroh, in my opinion. Pass protection was at its best when he was on the field. Texas, look, it was tough. That left guard spot's been an issue the entire season. Jeff, you mentioned it's really just 3 guards right now. I still don't see Neto Mazzullo being a piece of this puzzle, and Sark didn't mention him when given the opportunity to. It's interesting, but right now, it looks like it's going to be Connor Stroh's job moving forward.
The other thing, CJ, and this is what you asked Sark about, is the switch they made. Mike Bamonte, the assistant quarterback's coach, comes out of the press box onto the field. AJ Milwee goes back upstairs, and it makes a lot of sense, and it made sense when Sark explained it, which kind of makes you wonder why they didn't do it earlier, but here we are. They've done it nonetheless. But, AJ Milwee has been up there. Sark trusts him, and he can give him information that maybe Mike Bamonte, with his lack of experience at this point. Keep in mind, AJ Milwee's been an FBS coordinator before, and he's been around for a while. He obviously worked with Sark at Alabama, and they've got a good rapport. But CJ, that move, kicking AJ Milwee upstairs, really, really helps Sark, I think, maybe see things that at field level he can't get a grip on.
Yeah, I think it absolutely helped. I was told after the game that some of the more significant play calls and suggestions came from Milwee, and that's a huge plus because that's something Texas didn't have the luxury of when he was on the sideline. Not to mention, you go back to when Arch spoke preseason. What did he do when he was a backup quarterback? He'd go sit and watch film with Mike Bamonte and kind of go over what he felt, whether it be on or off the field. It was that relationship with Bamonte. Now to have him on the sidelines, I think that is another cushion for Arch. And Sark mentioned, he said, look, I'm the head coach. It's tough for me to sit there and kind of converse with the quarterback on what they're seeing, how they're feeling, et cetera. But getting Bamonte out there, Jeff, it makes a lot more sense for Arch and for Sark to have Milwee in his ear and the eye in the sky. I think it's huge. To your point, I wonder, too, why it took so long for this change to be made.
Yeah, but hey, thankfully they made it, and I would expect that to be the case going forward. CJ, I want to get to this question because I was talking about this while we were trying to reestablish connection with you earlier, and now that we got you back. Andrew says, assuming the rest of the teams we play get smart and don't kick the niblet, do we see more of a focus on punt blocking again? And I just don't know that you're at the point, CJ, where you can afford to waste potential possessions by getting I don't know that the risk is worth the reward. But at some point, Jeff Banks will have to have a counterpunch because you got to think sooner or later, somebody's going to directionally kick it or do something to limit Ryan Niblet's impact on the game. It's coming at some point. It probably will be in the form of a punt block, but that punt return team, it just shows you when you've got a guy that is a legit threat to score when he touches the ball, how much of a game changer that can be for you.
Yeah, directional punting will have to be the counter from teams. And we saw it at one point against Vanderbilt. They pinned it on the 10, punting away from Ryan Niblet. Penalty backed it up to the Texas 5. The solution for Texas will be throwing out another return man, right? Whether it's DeAndre Moore, Dalen McCutcheon, someone that they trust. Now, there goes your idea of having Ryan Niblet return everything. But, it's better than having the ball bounce 20, 30 yards back further. I don't know if Texas will be uber aggressive moving forward. Look, they have talent, they have skills, they have guys that can go up and block punts. But to your point, do you run the risk of giving opposing offenses another possession? I don't think so.
Especially against Vanderbilt, where it's going to be a low possession game. And CJ will end on this. Living rent free in UT says Vandy has a legit secondary. Martell Height, Randall Fontenette, and Jordan Matthews are legit. Texas really needs to establish a run game if Arch is out. CJ, that's one thing Sark made clear. Look, they did what they had to do to win the game against Mississippi State, but against Vanderbilt you're going to play really good teams from here on out. Even a team like Arkansas, at least we know Arkansas can score. They're going to have to establish a run game or do a better job of getting something out of the run game than what they've gotten. Clearly, and especially if you don't have Arch Manning and that ability he has to extend plays, Texas will need to be – the running game will need to be better, CJ, than it's been the last two games.
It's going to have to be its best it's been all season long. And look, that's not saying a lot because it's been pretty bad all year long. But you also lose the idea of running the quarterback. And I know that Matthew Caldwell has some athleticism to him. He can scoot. We've seen a 50-yard run already. But how eager is this staff going to be to put another quarterback in harm's way when your third option is going to be a true freshman who's yet to take or attempt a pass? So I think you lose that element in the quarterback run game, but you're going to need to find some extra offense somewhere. Again, it's been 8 games, Jeff. I just don't know if that comes from the running game.
Yeah, I did like some of the things I saw from C.J. Baxter, even in limited touches on Saturday. So we'll see if Texas can get it going on the ground against Vanderbilt. We'll be breaking down the Vanderbilt game all week. Obviously, we still got stuff today to talk about coming off the Mississippi State game. I know C.J. And Coach Shipley and Rod will be talking about that on the winning drive tonight. Maybe C.J. will give a training day review since you watched that in the Jackson Airport in the wee hours Sunday morning. C.J., that's up to you. But thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always, C.J. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to everybody in the chat who participated. Thank you to Duck Camp for sponsoring it. If you're not a member, over to ontexasfootball.com. Make sure you get over to the site right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access over at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing anything before, during, and after every Texas game this season. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.